Hey everyone, I am just so ready to continue this season. Let me tell you, I don't know about y'all, but I have been blessed by every single story. And clearly today will be no different. I have, geez, I don't even know how I want to go into this, but you know what? Let them introduce themselves and then I'll come back around and share all that I'm feeling right now about this guest. So with that being said, why don't you just take it away and let all the listeners know who you are?
All right. I am Dr. Brandy Pritchett Johnson, affectionately known as Dr. Brandy. Everybody just says Dr. Brandy because that's a whole lot. And I think the most important thing to share about me is that I am a Black woman living in America.
Listen.
I am a mom. I am a wife. I have a lot of roles. But at my core, I believe I'm a visionary and a versatile, just woman of color.
Yeah.
I'm complicated.
Oh, beautifully, beautifully though, right? I love that. Okay, so here's what y'all don't know. Dr. Brandy and I went to high school together a couple years ago.
Couple.
She's
Okay, Allie.
gonna keep me super honest, but a few emphasis heavy on the two fews ago, and she is just honestly just a ray of sunshine, super joyous, but also super real. That has never not been who she is. And so trust me when I tell you what you get today is honestly a treat, to just get her wisdom and her humor and her realness. And yeah, shout out to be Dr. Brandy, this beautifully complicated Black woman, right? There's
Thank
nothing wrong
you.
with that. I love everything about that. Um, and so I'm super ready to dive into your I Didn't See It Coming story, which is on theme with this season. So if you wouldn't mind, just however you want to share, what is that moment that you didn't see coming?
Oh my goodness. This is so hard, Allie. This
Yeah.
is so hard. And as we know, I'm a shrink. I'm a psychologist. So I
Mhm.
think of all the things over and over and over.
Yeah,
I have three, I think, pivotal things
sure.
I didn't see coming. One of
Okay.
them was just death, like loss. So much loss. So
Listen.
much loss. I didn't see that coming over and over. And then I think motherhood, believe it or not, I did not see that coming. If it weren't for the 99% disclaimer, I would have sued the contraceptive companies because I did not see that coming.
Right, right.
Motherhood. And then I think a unique one that I didn't see coming. So there's three categories. The unique one that I didn't see coming was probably my influence.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I'm just now coming to terms with like who I am.
Yes.
That's probably the scariest one, actually.
Yeah. That's so real. Okay, so let's start with the first one. You talked about you experienced loss over loss. And let me tell you, that in and of itself is such a life-altering experience. So share with us what some of those pivotal moments were. More so, what happened and then how did you feel in that season?
Yeah. I think you said it, Allie, like it's the aftermath that I didn't see
Yeah.
coming. I think some of the so as a lot of people have, especially nowadays, I was introduced to death pretty young. So I had like a great grandmother pass, but then my mother passed away. My mother died when she was 27 years old. I was 10.
Yeah.
So that blew my mind at that time, but I don't think the impact of that happened until probably adolescence, even adulthood. I remember being 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've outlived my mother.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most overwhelming years of my life. I had just finished my PhD. I had just gotten married. 4 months into my marriage, I realized I was pregnant. And I was like, she didn't get to live to this. Like, I'm just
Mhm.
getting started.
Yeah.
And I didn't intend to share this, but I think this matters too. Also, in that year, a man, I to this day don't know who my father is, my biological father, but a
Mm-hmm.
man reached out to me on Facebook and was like, I think I'm your daddy while I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So I was just having a lot of resentment towards my mother that
Yeah.
28 years later, I was being impacted by some of these choices. So I did not see any of that coming.
Totally. the fact that you were I mean, you gave it words when you were like, it's the aftermath. And I
Yes.
totally identify with that. And I'm sure so many listeners do when they think about, if they've lost loved ones, whoever those people may be, of you kind of, because it's such a sharp shift in your life that you did not welcome, um, you kind of don't know what to expect until it actually hits. And I will venture to say because of that, you have so many I didn't see it coming moments, because you don't know what to expect till it's there. And they're filled with a lot of bittersweetness. Like
So
there's this
much.
sweetness of moving forward with your life, and then bitterness to a degree of like, they're not there. And I know for me, I've always felt like a little bit of anger, like, how dare you? Not to say that you did ask, but it's a feeling of, but you still left and it impacted me type of thing. And so,
Yes, and I mean, even like I didn't see it coming, those like simple moments that are
yeah.
like triggering. I remember my godmother, who also passed very young at 41 in an
Mhm,
accident. So it was
mhm.
out of nowhere. And I remember like months later going to call her. I like just like out of habit, just picked something happened that made me think of her. And I was like, oh, I gotta tell her. And I picked up the phone and I was mad as hell. Can I cry?
Right. Well, we'll allow that.
Okay. I was so like, wait, I was just shocked. Like,
Yeah.
how is this still happening?
Yeah. Totally, totally. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I feel like those moments are so vulnerable, but truly they are the part that it gives you a different perspective, not only just on their life as it intertwines, or the intersectionality with your life and
Yes.
theirs, but also like how you want to live yours, and
Yes.
the concept of time and how you spend time. And it's just such a deep concept, that honestly, there's nothing that can prepare you. I mean, that's the other thing I think. And I know people say this with no intention of being mean, but even when you're thinking of a loss that maybe involved illness or anything, and people are like, well, or even age, right? Like even age,
Right.
and people are
Right.
like, oh, yeah, well, it was gonna come, and you're like, you still don't see it coming. There's
You
nothing
don't
that
see the
prepares you for
impact.
that.
You don't see the
Yes.
impact coming. Like
Yeah.
I so appreciate you like connecting in this way, because it's like it's that piece of when you said sharing the intertwined nature of the
Yeah.
relationships. It's like, this is a moment I want to share with this person, and
Yeah.
my nervous system just out of habit went to share it. My
Absolutely.
intellect had to catch up, like, oh my gosh, I can't share this moment with this person, and you're
Yeah.
grieving all over again.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
normal.
Whew, so true. So true. So yeah, I totally get that. And I also, I'm gonna say this, super super transparent moment. So I'm giving this as homage to you, but because we grew up together well into tweens, like that far back. And I knew the impact of the loss of your mom, and then I remember you having other losses, but you were probably the first person in my life that had someone close to you pass away so young. Like there wasn't anyone in my life that had. And so I remember thinking about how being fully aware of how strong and wise you were in that space, even though we were like 12 and 13.
Wow.
Um,
Thank you, Allie.
no, it's so true. And what's crazy is, um, when I lost my sister, like in the aftermath of that, I remember thinking about you, because you were my first connection to someone understanding. And I know that's a real thing, because I have people in my life who, have lost people in their life, and they'll call me and be like, I just wanted to call you because I know what this feels like. And so I understood the concept of like, when you think back to like who was the first person that you related or feel that you could relate to in a moment of loss. Um, and I remember you reached out and you were like, I am no stranger to loss. And I was like, because I lost my father and sister like back to back. And I remember you saying like, I'm there for you, but it was just a comfort. And we hadn't even talked in like years, but because that was my association of like strength and like this, that's what this is. Like that whole time I'm perceiving you this way, to be in it, there was just another level of respect and then like identification. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I wanted to share that with you because that was a true, I remember being aware of you in that moment of loss because that was my connection of like this whole time. That's what this feels like.
That's a gift to me. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, no,
That is
I
a huge
want to
gift
share
to
that.
me.
Absolutely. I definitely have always shared that. And so much so that I remember this may be sensitive, but if it is,
It's all right, girl. We
yeah.
talking.
But I remember at whatever age, I remember you had like a tattoo of someone.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember at that time, like, and y'all have to understand, this is not like this wasn't a grown woman processing things. We were young.
We were young.
Like,
yeah.
On a cheer team together, going to college. Like it's that. But I remember thinking like, no joke, Brand, to this day, Dr. Brand, excuse me, because I do respect that. No joke. I remember thinking like, I would never get a tattoo unless that would be the only thing in my mind that I feel like I would ever want to add. And literally, that is the only tattoo. Well, maybe not only, but definitely the first tattoo that I had. And it wasn't even like it was this deep connection, but like I remember thinking like, I mean, remembering tying it back to your story, like literally, and thinking like, I have always said because of that moment with you, like that would be the only reason why. And then when it came time in my life to experience transition in that way, that was how I wanted to take.
So basically what you're saying is I made you go get a tattoo.
That's basically what I wanted to say. I just didn't know how to introduce so, long story short, Dr. Brandy is why I have a tattoo. So
but look though, like if I can shrink it for a second.
Yes.
It makes sense. Like people, so one of the things that we know, and I hate to do this, but what is so natural for me, one of the things that we know is that one of the strategies that people utilize when they are navigating trauma is ritual and tradition. Ritual and tradition. There's something symbolic that needs to happen in order to create closure or commemorate or whatever. That's why we have funerals. That's why we have, celebrations of life. That's why we do these things.
Yeah.
And so at 17 is when I got my first tattoo to commemorate my mother. And I had to get my grandma's signature and all that. And that was literally the only tattoo she was going to give me permission for.
Totally.
And then it became almost like a little bit of a rites of passage of our grief, because then my sister, Ash, who you also know, when she was 17, I went with her to get her first tattoo. And we have the same one commemorating my mom. It kind of needs an update at this point. But then what also happened with all the other losses is that became my thing. So I have several tattoos that symbolize my relationship to these lost people. And then I remember a moment later in my adulthood thinking, well, every time somebody died, if it's going to go like this, I can't just go get a tattoo.
Totally.
Every time I can't do that. So then I came up with other ways of like commemorating them. But yeah, you're welcome.
Girl, yes. I ended up getting her signature from a card.
Oh, that's lovely.
She passed away like right before my birthday. So it was the last birthday card that she signed. But yeah, I'm connecting those dots. So yes, thank you for, I'm going to be very mindful and choiceful of my words. Like I want to say in first draft, thank you for your strength in that time frame, but that's also not to belittle that you had a choice to be strong or that is how you wanted to be. It was just kind of where life brought you. So but I'm saying for me to witness that, I'm very grateful for it, knowing that that's very complex in how you showed up, but that even in how you showed up, it was creating a foundation for what was to come for me years down the road. So
without even knowing, again, you have no idea how much of a gift that is to me. I had this I had this moment this year. My mother's on June 29th is the anniversary of her death. And this year marked 29 years. So I've
Wow.
lived like my whole life without her. And yet she's always there,
There.
you
Yeah.
know, causing trouble, you know, giving insight, getting in my business,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
So we have had a very interesting relationship
Yeah.
beyond her life in a
Yeah.
way. And I've had to reconcile a lot. But this past year was really meaningful in a way because to your point about strength, I don't think I even would call it that. Like, I don't know. I was just
Right. Right.
navigating.
Living.
And I
Right.
remember the day of my mother's passing because my sister and I are the ones that found her.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very traumatic experience, but it was also not, it didn't feel traumatic at that time. That came
Right.
later. But I remember on that day, the hospital called me and they asked if I wanted to come to see my mom because they
Mm-hmm.
knew like this is it. And I remember saying, I remember this on the phone in the hallway saying, I need to stay here and be here for my sister.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I chose to like be a big sister to her.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
past year, my grandmother called me and she was very tearful. Her health is declining a little bit. And she just
Mm-hmm.
said, you know, I can't stop thinking about that day. And I said, okay. And she said, you know, you said, and she said that to me. She was like, you said you needed to be there for your sister. And she said, that is exactly what you've done.
Mm.
She's like, she listens to you more than me, you know? And
Right.
I was like, wow. And then I see that same dynamic in my children, where
Yeah.
my oldest is like parenting the younger one all the time.
Yeah.
So,
That's so, I mean, it's very full circle without it trying to be.
yes, it's wild.
Yeah. It's so wild, but I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you're sharing this story. Because I know so many people can identify. And one thing, especially in this season, that I feel will be impactful to listeners is truly, aside from feeling seen through these moments, um, people helping them get words. Because sometimes one of the biggest frustrations is not having the words to articulate
Yes.
that, like, what you're feeling. It's just that when someone else shares, there's this identification of like, yes, that is what I'm feeling. That's what I
That's
couldn't
it.
put together. So I'm just grateful for every guest this season that are giving language to feelings of moments that you don't plan for in life, which is so much of life. Um, and when you talked about your kids, that's a great segue into what you said your second I didn't see it coming was. So, I mean, yeah, there's the natural like, oh, okay, I'm here. How did that change you as a person when you found out? And is it immediate? Is it kind of like, yeah, I don't know. And then it kind of came into it, or was it something immediately you're like, okay, this is a shift?
Girl. Yeah, it's so interesting how these moments actually connect
Yeah,
because again, I was 28 years old.
yeah.
So I was sitting in that space of I've outlived my mom
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just starting. And I had just started my first postdoctoral job. And I'm a Black woman in America at
Right.
a relatively prestigious institution.
Yes.
And now I'm about to go tell these fools I'm pregnant. Like I just had a lot of that. And I was taking birth control,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, again, I'm kind of an open book because these are the nuances of our stories that really
Sure.
matter,
Yeah.
not just the themes. I was taking birth control, but I had skipped a few days. And so I
Yeah.
tried to catch up. And they tell you not to do that. And
Right.
clearly, because it might not be as effective, and clearly it
Right.
wasn't. So my husband and I had just talked about waiting 2 years to have children. And here
Mm-hmm.
it is 6 months later, 4 months later, and I'm pregnant. I cried in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even want to tell him this is my husband, y'all.
You're
He
right.
wants children. I was so scared. And in that moment, while I was feeling really frustrated towards my mother, and resentful, because
Mm-hmm.
remember at this stage, a man was saying he was my father. So I was kind of
Right.
navigating all these feelings. I was having resentment towards my mom. And then I also had this simultaneous feeling of respect because I am
Yeah.
28 years old with a PhD, a good job, a good
Mm-hmm.
husband. I've got a little bit of money. I got good insurance and I'm terrified. And I'm
Right.
like, I can only imagine how she felt at 17 with me.
Yeah.
So I had this like humbling experience for
Mm-hmm.
her and then talked to my husband and his excitement shifted my energy.
Yeah.
his excitement shifted my energy. And then finally, when I mustered up the courage to tell my job, my mentor shifted my energy. And so I became obviously very excited, and still don't know what I'm doing, but it worked out.
Right. One thing that you said that it has become so precious to me as an adult, like a full-grown adult, is this awareness that we have that as we get older, we have this appreciation and awareness of how our parents were growing up when they were parents. Like when we get to the age where they were parents, we're like, what? How?
Yes.
Like, what was, to your point that you shared, what was your mind frame? Because I don't know. I would be out. And then I call it like post grace, because you didn't have it in the moment. You were a
Ooh,
kid,
I love that phrase.
but you have this post grace for them to say, like, all the things that I probably was angry about in any form, shape, or I didn't agree with, or I didn't understand. Like, I get it, because you were just saying, like, I still don't know, because honestly, it's like every new day is like, this is the new day with this person with their own personality, and they're learning too. So you are literally learning with them, and you're just like, wow, you look back and you're like, shout out to you. And also, apologies for when I made it just that much more
complicated.
Yes, because I as a kid wanted you to be all knowing. And to a degree, you kind of, in their own way, every parent is different, every guardian is different, and they're literally bringing all they have to the situation in the best they know how. But now as an adult, we can look back and be more appreciative and have so much more grace for them. That's hopefully, I hope that they feel that, whoever those people in your life that influence you, to be like, I mean, even now, so Dr. Brandy and I were on a cheerleading team together.
Hey,
We have the same coach, but I often think of coach because I'm like, I ain't gonna lie, and she'll probably hear this podcast. There were times when I would be annoyed. Like, if I got to do one more push-up or run this whole segment again, I'm gonna be upset. But then, like, being older, I'm like, oh, how you deal with like 27 high school girls? Like, ew,
Yes, in the ignorance of it all.
And
Like,
of it all.
coach is making us do this again. Like,
Yeah.
But
Totally.
so much of my tenacity,
Yeah,
and my tolerance for discomfort came from that. It came from her.
Totally.
So it's like, thank you, coach.
Right. Definitely look back. I coached cheerleading for 1 year and was like, this ain't my ministry. But my level of understanding and, like, she did that, grew insurmountable in that 1 year. But yeah, so I when you said that, I'm like, I get it. I get that. You look back with, the clearest of understanding and humility.
My apologies for all the judgments, like, to my mother,
God.
the judgments, and thank you for the patience, like, helping me to come to terms with my own ignorance,
Totally.
So I think we need to express, people always say give their flowers while they're here. I think we need to do a better job culturally of expressing that. Like, I get it now. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like, one of the things is, it's okay to say it later, because truly you don't, that's when you have the knowledge of hindsight to say it, right? Like, I didn't have it at 6 because I was fully dependent on people to live.
Yeah.
And so there was this superhero complex of, like, I'm going to bring you my problems, and I kind of want you to solve them because I'm 11. But then as you grow into adulthood, there's this look back of, like, thank you for taking that on, for all the parents, guardians, mentors, whoever, who just took it on, took almost a identity where younger people could root their security in you. That's a huge responsibility. So that we could be safe in that formative time. But now we can look back and say, I'm of age to realize that was a heavy lift.
I am of the wisdom You know what I mean? Of the wisdom. And that's such a beautiful testimony to ourselves, to our own growth. Like, I'm maturing. You know? Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so now let's dive into this I didn't see it coming influence. That makes me think, because I didn't see that answer coming.
Girl, me neither.
So I'm really want to tell me more, like say more about that.
You know, and I have to just say, side note, as we're talking about this, first of all, Allie, I could talk to you forever.
Same.
And because it's just so natural and it's so nostalgic. It's like it's such a gift when you don't talk to someone for like decade. And it just feels like yesterday in a sense.
Totally.
And I'm thinking of so many moments I didn't see coming. But to this one, my influence, the universe, if you are in attunement, this is just my belief system. If I'm in an alignment and attunement with my God, and everybody, no shade to anybody else, but I know my God. So my God and in the universe, you get so many messages, so much cautionary, so many cautionary signs, so much encouragement. And I have had over the years so much validation and affirmation that my voice is influential, that it's valuable, that what I have to offer the world is again valuable, and I need to just claim that and step into that. I as quote unquote successful as I know that I am, and that I do believe that I am. I mean, I've met so many of my own goals, like pretty much all of my own goals, not without struggle, but it's still that thing of like, I know when I'm holding back.
Right.
And I keep getting messages of like, don't do that. Don't you do that. Don't you do that. And so I didn't see that coming. Sometimes I feel like, and I will have this conversation with God of like, and this sounds really kind of arrogant.
No, it's
like,
totally fine.
It makes me kind of like, I don't want to be great. I just want to be basic today. Like, I just want to be basic.
Right.
And you know what? Because I've had so many I didn't see it coming, this is maybe your first. I got to answer this real quick because they keep calling me. And when people call you back to back, it make you nervous. It's a trauma trigger. Hello?
Right.
Babe, I'm in a podcast. Are you okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought you had to leave. I'm sorry. On my way.
Oh my gosh, bye. Nothing's wrong.
Listen, great.
When they call back to back, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, you were talking about how you were like, I don't want to be great fully in this moment. It didn't sound arrogant at all, because there's a way to being great. There is. And I also feel that people don't name that type of weight. I mean, like, I often even say like when you are making massive decisions in your life, that is exhausting. Like, it feels like you ran a marathon. And it's the same. Like when there is because when you're great, what also is great is accountability. And accountability has weight. And so to be like, today, I don't want it all, but I'm grateful. And this is not me saying forever, but I'm also saying today, I don't want to think and make decisions for anybody except me. And I want those to be like decisions. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because there is, I just think that we've glorified power, success, and influence, and we never talk about what it costs. Well, what power, success, and influence with integrity, what that cost. I mean, we can go act up all day and gain faux influence, but true influence that's rooted in integrity you have to make wise decisions. You have to think about who you're influencing. There's so much with that. So yeah, I say that all to say, like, that I get it when you were like, today is just, I want to like live for me.
Yes.
So that's just the real thing.
Yeah. Like it's that, it's the, I got some feedback from a student like a couple years ago that was like, you're so intimidating. And I'm like,
girl,
what?
That was triggering for me in that moment, in this small moment.
Thank you. I was like, me? Like, little old me? Like, do you, like, I'm super chill. I'm super whatever. I had the pause to not be super reactive to her. And I said, what is it that makes you experience me that way? And what she said surprised me. It wasn't my like personality per se, it was my intellect. She's like, you're so smart. And like, I feel stupid when I talk to you. And I'm like, oh, and I really was just being, it was a student. So she would ask me a question, I would answer the question and go on and on and on. And I was like, oh, and it gave me pause of like, wow. And then I also had someone tell me one day that my feedback felt condescending to them. And I think, and I had to receive that because I'm not a condescending person, but sometimes I will be like, oh, yeah, and just talk about it like it's so easy, you know? And it's like, no, but it's not. And so, and then on the flip side, there's feedback that's like very encouraging. Like, I can listen to you lecture on anything, or you're the best therapist in the world, or whatever. But either way, the message is the same. You have influence. Your words have power. Your presence matters. How you interact with people, you need to engage authentically, but with intention. And then be receptive to the impact of how your presence. And I'm like, can't I just hide sometimes and chill and not have to be, you know?
Okay. So that was really great to hear, and I'm trying to process what I want to say. I love this answer of I didn't see it coming, like influence, because that's a real thing. And as you were talking, and thank you for sharing the realness, because I feel like let me speak for me.
Please.
I would avoid sharing. I just had this conversation with someone the other day, but I was just saying, like, I would always want to avoid sharing negative feedback that I had. I don't mind receiving it. I just don't want to share it with others. Because I feel that, I don't think influence is something you ask for. It's just something you come into. And in whatever way that looks, and it looks different for other people. And when you were saying, like, I got feedback of you can be condescending or intimidating, and I've gotten that feedback from different areas. And usually, like, of course, the human part of you was like, no, I'm not, because you, like, you're intimidating, and you're like, are you kidding? Like, I have so much grace for so much, like, no way. And even in that response and facial expression, that in and of itself can probably come off like, ugh.
Like,
just humbly say thank you for your feedback, right? But I too have felt that understanding of like, let me hear you in what you're saying. And I love that you leaned in more and was like, tell me how, versus like, no, I'm not. Because I've learned too not to internalize the perception of me, because I can't control the perception of me, nor can I control the influence I have on anyone. That is something that similar to how we were talking in the beginning, like, you had an influence on me when we were 12, and that you didn't ask for that. It was just how you carried yourself, how I saw you in your current world. So it's not anything that you can control, like, well, stop having influence. That you can't do that. And I'm reminded of a Bible verse. I want to say it's Proverbs 18:16. So, and I'm really, Proverbs 18:16. And I never like to say the wrong thing as far as quoting. That's important. But it says, your gifts will make room for you and bring you before great men. And there's a lot of things that tied to that I mentioned that on the first episode of the first podcast ever, because you are gifted with the gifts that you are given, right? And they're going to make room and bring you before great people. So there has to be a conscious humility, like a humble confidence that you have to carry, because you have to show up and you have to take up space. Like, it's going to make room for you, and you have to take that space up, because you were equipped to be the one who carries it in the room. But you have to be so mindful and delicate with how you treat the influence once you get in the room, because it is powerful and it is changing. someone without you even knowing. And you won't ever know how many people you influence. Not everybody you influence will come back to you at some point in life and be like, in 98, like that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So the posture that you took with saying like, how, and I'm mindful of that, not because I'm going to change like who I am, but I can be more mindful how I enter in relationship with people so that they can harness the influence that you have in a way that's digestible.
Yeah. Ooh, all of that, Allie. Like all of that. I mean, quite frankly, being confronted with that, and to your point, leaning into it, was still a gift for me, because the other part of it is it is on some level it actually reinforced exactly who I want to be. Like if me being smart in your eyes is what intimidates you, well, I mean, okay, like, and then I get to nurture and support whatever insecurity is in you, so that you don't have to experience me that way. And let me also say, that's a choice. That is not an expectation. That's not my responsibility. But I'm happy to sit in that space with you. Like, so, I mean, everything you said just speaks to me, especially that part about like, when you were saying you don't choose it, like it's just what it is, and you can't, because to try to mute it or quiet it causes a lot of suffering, and it inhibits the good you can do in the world. So
it's a disservice to your gift. And we do need what people bring, like we need that. So throughout this episode, you shared some items and moments and occurrences that you just didn't see coming, but you also mentioned things like your godmother. We mentioned Coach and all these people, and it makes me think, and I say this almost on every episode because I feel remiss to not have everyone, or give space to everyone to answer this question. But I believe in the power of the village. I feel like that line is going to be in every episode, unintentionally, but maybe intentionally. And so, who have been those people in your life that, in all these I didn't see it coming moments, to the level or degree you want to share, or maybe it's a collective of people that it's like, you know what, this was so helpful in this moment that I did not see happening. And how important was it to have those people along the way?
Oh my goodness, there's so many, Allie. Like, there's so many. And so I can't even name them all, but I think that even those that those that have lost, like even now, when I have my I didn't see it coming moments, or these significant life experiences, I always say, like, the gift of death, in a sense, like the suffering that comes with loss, because it's an indication of value. It's like I had the privilege of having a relationship, or having someone that mattered this much to me, that it hurts to not have it. That is actually a good thing.
Totally.
And so I am influenced all the time by such a village, to your point, such a village. And even that young lady that said I was intimidating and all that, even people like that, because in an indirect way, they validate my excellence.
Yes.
I've developed a bit of a reputation of being a difficult professor and a hard supervisor. And not like an a-hole, but like difficult, like hard. And I remember the first time I got that feedback, I was kind of like insecure about that. And I remember one of my closest friends, she was reviewing an exam I created. This was like one of my very first classes years ago. And she's like, Brandy, this is hard. This is like a hard test. And I was like, is it? She's like, yeah, it's a hard test. And I was like, oh, well, they need to know this. I wasn't mature enough to modify. But now to have that reputation is validating, because what they also say is, Dr. Brandy don't play, and you're better for it. Like, you're better for it. You're going to be better for it. She cares that much. And so, to your question, even my students hold me down. Everybody thinks that we sow into them. My clients, I love my clients. They
Yeah.
hold me down. They are my village.
Yes.
My children. Oh my goodness. One of the things I didn't see coming as it relates to them is I thought I wanted 4 children. And then I had one.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, no, that's not who you thought you were.
Right.
I have 2, but even then they teach me so much about myself. So my village is great. There's so many people.
Yes. I
So
love
many
that.
people.
I love that. I was when you're talking about your students, I thought the same thing even before you got there. But I was like, yeah, I think all my favorite teachers were the one that challenged me the most. One, because they were super challenging, but I felt like they cared more because they were like, and this is not a shade to teachers who are not, but it's something about when that teacher was like, oh no, you're gonna get it. I felt like, oh, they really want me to get it versus like, if you get it, great. If you don't, that's on you, you know?
Yes.
And so, yeah, they were like, didn't like you when it was going on, love you for it now. And how that translates to so many things. Like, you know, you brought up at the beginning, like, I am a beautifully complicated Black woman. And I'm gonna go there real quick, but because I think there's this stigma on Black women specifically for being difficult or challenging or intimidating and all the other adjectives we've talked about in this episode. And I used to get really defensive when I would hear that about myself or about any other Black woman. And somewhere in my entrance into 30s, I fully embraced it, not in a conceited or elitist way, but it's who life made me. There are parts of me that are extremely soft and delicate and vulnerable. And I show up that way when given the space and security. And then there's parts of me that have lost and had to figure things out without the traditional village that other people may have. I mean, that's not
right.
I didn't have that. And I had to persevere through obstacles that I did not see coming. And it is a gift to be able to have that level of fortitude that protects the part of you that is delicate. And they balance each other well because I couldn't be 1000% delicate only, but that does exist in me and in you. But it's that part of me is allowed to be so beautiful and delicate because of the part of me that challenges the norms, that expects the best out of everyone else, that wants the best for others, whether that's, friendships, relationships, professional relationships. I want the best out of my village. And so I challenge it because they challenge me. And all of that challenging allows me to keep this part of me that is, delicate.
Yes.
And so I don't apologize for that other part because it's necessary. And usually, and I think you mentioned it, it's usually when people share that, yes, it's great feedback it's a good mirror to hold up and say like, okay, there are probably some times when my approach could be different. At the same time, as a professor, as someone who leads younger people, the part of you that they need is the part that challenges the better part in them.
That's right. That's right.
And that's with your kids too. And then there's also a part of that needs to just be hugged on and to know that you're there. So you need them both. And so long story longer, I think it's important to name those things and not say like, not be defensive or think like that's a horrible part of you. It's like, it's who you are and it's how you're carried. Like all parts of you are carried and protected.
Yeah. And, I think one of the challenges we have, like just globally,
Totally,
is, in the most sophisticated sense of the term, like taking certain things personal. Like, so, when the student said that, yes, I had an emotional reactivity to it because, to your point, I know myself different, but I know myself.
Yes.
So therefore, I'm not threatened by what you say.
Yeah.
I'm curious, but I don't need to be threatened. And I think that has probably been one of the single most useful thoughts that help me with parenting, because when kids do certain things, it's like easy to, you're not going to disrespect me, but it's a little harder to be like, okay, I'm the parent and I have control ultimately. what is it you're navigating
Yes.
that's making you unruly? Like, it's
Yes.
not about me.
Right. Right.
It's about you.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I don't even know if that relates, but it made me think of that.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So that was a good gem. Um, really quick, you know, when we talk about moments that we didn't see coming, when we talk about how we've had to move and bounce back, I think there's a part that we have to also um share, that is the importance of like self-care, because you don't always know what's going to come. You also don't know how you'll respond, and sometimes you're responding in the moment. What is what does self-care look like for you when life brings you new surprises?
It's a bit of a roller coaster,
Sure.
in the sense of like, I know the things that make me feel most well.
Mm-hmm.
And when I am most well, I tend to forget them because I'm good.
Right, right.
So it's like everything's great. And
Yeah.
then, so just to be concrete, I mean, I am of the era that is like so into yoga and so
Right.
into meditation these
Mm-hmm.
days. I'm so into it. I love it. And what I've realized over over the different cycles that I've been
Mm-hmm.
into it is that the absence of it is more impactful than the presence. So
Wow.
sometimes my yoga practice isn't all that profound. It's not, it's actually just sometimes even feels like a waste of time. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not feeling super zen. But what I do notice is when I don't stay connected to it for a
Yeah.
while, then the cumulative stress piles up and then I'm kind of burnt out and I'm like, oh, that's the thing that I stopped doing. So
Right.
that I found, I haven't always been a fan of working out, but I have found a dance class that I love and I'm into the cycling now.
Yes.
And so I love that. And even, you know, when we talk about our identities, that was a part of why I cut my hair. So I
Yeah.
used to have
Yeah.
really long hair and I am the flat iron generation. And so I would
Listen.
straighten my hair, but I'm just tired of wasting time on my hair and I want to work out and I want to get caught in the rain and not care and I want to go swimming and so I'm like
Yeah.
I'm to hell with it. So what I do for self-care overall,
Mm-hmm.
though, because there's all these things you could do, but more than
Sure.
anything is I stay really curious
Yes.
about who I am and what I need in every
Yeah.
season. You know, what my new motto is, my old motto used to be suffer quick, meaning
Mm-hmm.
work really, really hard to get what you want and then rest later. That used
Yeah.
to be my motto. It worked for a while. It got me
Yeah.
here. But my new model is do what I need and not what I planned. And
Yeah.
so it reminds me to just tune into my body. If I get in a zone with a project and I haven't ate in 6 hours,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's like, wait a minute, I know I'm in a flow, but
Yeah.
do what I need and not what I planned.
Yes.
And then just stay very, what I would tell everybody, of course, sleep and exercise and all these things are good, but there's nuance. So the most important thing when you come up with a self-care regimen is to really spend time with yourself and get
Mm-hmm.
curious about what do I need and what tools are going to help me get what I need.
Right.
And then also doing things that inspire liberation.
Yes.
That's what you do. You create, you find and you choose things that inspire liberation. What
Yeah.
makes me feel encouraged and inspired about life? And that's how you create your wellness plan. I'll say this one last thing just as an example.
Sure.
What do I need? I need to get I'm feeling tired and drained in my body. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not feeling super healthy in my body, which means I need physical activity. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't have the money to go to a gym membership. Maybe I don't want to go running. Maybe I don't want to do these things. Okay. But I also have kids and I love music. Dance party. So for a
Yeah.
couple years, I literally every morning before school, me and my kids, each of us, we would pick a song. Everybody would pick their song. And for 3 songs, we would jam out every
Yeah.
morning. That was my exercise, that was my bonding, and that was my ritual with my kids.
Yes.
So you got to customize your
Yes.
self-care regimen.
Yeah. When you said that your new motto is do what I need, not what I plan. Um, as we finish up kind of the body of this episode, I think that pairs so well with what I didn't see it coming, because it speaks to the liberty, the freedom of not being nimble, that when
Mm.
things don't go as planned, you can do what you need. And I just was like, oh, that's how fitting. How fitting, because that is
I didn't
almost
even make the connection. Yes.
that is almost the response to I didn't see it coming. And that would be, well, do what you need and not what you plan, because planning is great. And if you live long enough, you'll realize that that's where it starts and stops. It is great. It's good to have those things, but it's even more important to do what you need. So I really appreciate that. Okay, so my last pivot, because I always end episodes with a degree of levity and getting a peek into the fun part of each guest, is that I'm asking every guest in each episode to share a television or book character that you enjoyed watching their story unfold. It could have been a hardship, it could have been self-growth. Who is that character? Where are they from? And why did you choose them?
That is so hard, Allie.
And you know what's crazy? Everybody, I didn't think that was gonna be a hard question, but everyone has said that so far.
That is so hard. The one I've been thinking about, and it's so kind of cliche, but I just watched the trailer
Yeah.
for Black Panther 2.
Listen.
And it almost made me cry. So I was kind of feeling like King T'Challa.
Yes.
And honestly, I was actually thinking more about Chadwick.
Yes, yes.
So I'm like, he's not a character, but I was thinking of that.
Yes.
And then as you're talking to me, and this is like a random thing that I'm thinking of, on the show The Chi,
Yeah.
Emmett.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why. Emmett is just a hot mess.
Listen.
But he's becoming less and less of a hot mess. Like he started out so immature.
Yeah.
And now it seems like he's had some consequences that are making him be more reflective.
Yes.
He's like a little more mature. He's a little bit more thoughtful. He's still making some interesting choices, but it's kind of cool to watch him grow up.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I chose this question because, characters are literally some form of life being lived out through fiction. And so we identify with different characters, whether it's like, oh, I'm proud of, and the funny thing is how we identify with them. Like sometimes we identify with them. It's like, oh, I look at you and I think that's me. Or I look at you and think like, oh, you're like my kid. Or I look at you and think like, oh, you're like my aunt. And so you're like cheering for them, like, oh, I want you to get it because you're not getting it. And it's also the reason why I chose this question is because, and I don't think I've shared this on any other episode, but it's because it awakens or agitates a part of you that when we talk about I didn't see it coming, we don't know what's going to happen. But we just have to watch it and be nimble and open to it. And that's what we're doing with characters. It's like,
watch it play out.
We are just watching it play out, and we watch them make bad mistakes. And sometimes if we rewatch a show or reread a book, it's like, I know you about to mess up. I know it. And I got to watch you. It's like a horror movie. Like, I know you about to go in this room and I'm mad.
Yeah.
But you have to let it play out, and you root and you hope that they get it. And sometimes it happens at the end, but it's that feeling of like you can't control it and it's frustrating. And so I thought the question was just like it's that part of you that's like, I want you to not go in there.
Yes.
Or I want
Listen
you
to me.
Yeah. But you kind of have to just let it play out and let it be. So yeah, I love that you shared Emmett, T'Challa, and Chadwick. Because those are definitely great characters and people to watch that they come out on. But Dr. Brandy, I'm so grateful to have had you on this episode. You don't even know. It's been so great. And
I am grateful for the invitation, and it's just good to chop it up with an old friend.
It is. And so like, keep doing you, being all that you are. I love that. It is such a blessing to see and hear. And yeah, I just love you. You're doing so many great things. And I know so many people will be inspired by what you shared today. And I love that for them. I think that's awesome because it's great to feel seen and understood.
Right.
So, all right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Paige My Book. Have a wonderful week. and we will talk soon.